All right, then. So now what we have to do is, so let's go ahead and create the custom hook to store the filters and everything. So over here inside the hooks folder, let's create a new file called use filters.jsx. And then, okay, so here let's say const use filters equals to an arrow function, and this is going to export the default as use filters. All right, now inside this function what we have to do is we have to get the use query hook, and this query it's going to return you the data of that particular query, which means the state, and is loading, whether the state is loading or not, or whether the state is having any issues or not, and the refetch method which helps you to refetch that particular state value from the API. So here we're going to set this as global filter. That's the state name I'm creating, and inside this I'm going to call a callback function, and here I'm going to return an object which is basically going to be a search term. That's the state, that's the property which is inside the state. Then I'm going to keep that the value as the empty. So basically what we are doing here over here is, so we are using a function to return the initial data. We are trying to return the initial data, so we are using a callback function to do that. Okay, then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say refetch on Windows focus as false as usual. Okay, and after this is the place where our function and everything is being getting ended, and I need to return that state what we are trying to do. So return the data is loading and is error, and the refetch everything as a function. All right, cool. So now we have the use filters hook, and now what I have to do is let's close this use filters and let's jump into the filters.jsx, and right after here we need to get that filters data. So const data equals to use filters. So it's not showing up, so what we have to do, we have to import it by manually by ourselves. Use filters from /hooks/use filters. It's the thing, copy and paste it over here and over here, close it, and now that should return the data object is loading and is error. And of course we need the if we need the refetch, we can use it later. So here what I'm going to do is we can keep that as because for the time being, because right now here we are using only one hook, one custom hook. If you're using more than one, we need to give an alias name for this data, so it's better to assign an alias name. So I'm just going to give an alias name as filter data itself. Filter data, that's the object which carries the data which we want to filter. So now if we save these changes and if you get back to the query client, so here it should gives you the global filter and new state. Inside that state you have a now string object which is called search term, which it doesn't have anything. Now what I need to do is I'm going to call a callback function, an on click function for what, for here, for this division. On click, whenever I'm clicking it, I'm going to call and callback function, and I'm going to say handle filter value, and I'm going to pass the item dot value inside item dot value. So then I'm going to copy this, and right after here I'm going to create const So I'm going to call a callback function for that. Then I will get the value inside over here. So that's the value which we are on click. We are sending the value over here. Now what I need to do is, so basically we need to get the previous value of your query state. Then we need to create the updated data. Then we need to push that updated data into your global state. So what I'm trying to say over here is const previous state equals to so we need to create a query client to update your query status. So let's say const query client equals to use query client. All right, so let's make sure that is installed from the React query. From here, using the query client object, query client dot get query data, which means we are trying to fetch the data value, which is nothing but this particular global state. So copy that global filter. This is the state value that we are trying to access over here. So that will get the previous data. Now I need to create the updated data. So get the updated state value equals to, I'm going to get an object. So I'm going to spread the previous state from it. Then I'm going to apply the new state value, which is the filter colon value. That's the new value which we are trying to set. Okay, so it's not a filter. This is going to be the search term. So we are trying to update the search term value as the value. Then okay, so what we can do is, instead of approaching by this way, so instead of creating a previous state and getting the updated state, and now what we need to do, I need to update the query client dot set query data and update that global filters. This global filter, we are going to update the global filter with this updated state value. So instead of writing this in a three different line, we can optimize this in a single line. Like instead of getting it and then updating it and then pushing it, so instead of doing all these things in a separate line, we can write it in a single line just by using query client dot set query data, open it. Let's use the global filter. Then I'm going to open an object and I'm going to spread the query client dot get query data, open it. I'm going to get the query data from the global filters, and then comma, I'm going to update the search term. That's the value which is inside, that's the object which is inside. So I'm going to update that value with the value what we are passing into this function. So this is how you can write this same line, the same functionality in a single line. So we are fetching it, then we are getting the previous data, and then we are updating the new data, right? So that's the optimistic way to do that. So now if I click this, you should get the software engineer, you should get the backend developer, you should get the full stack developer. If you're a software engineer, now you can see the search term is getting updated every time when I'm clicking it. So I need to change the background color as well as, so what I need to do is over here, so if the filter data, so this dollar and open it, we are going to access this state, which is nothing but the global filter. If that, inside that we do have the search term. If this double equals to item dot value, so what value we are trying to load over here, if it is equal to that, then what we are going to do, yeah, if I click software engineer, showing software engineer, if it is equals to this, if this condition is true, then I'm going to say bg grade 300 and shadow empty. Now, if I click this, you can see the software engineer is highlighted. If I click backend developer, the backend developer is changed. So that's the reason it's showing backend developer, and web developer. Now you can see it's changed to web developer. So the filter is working fine. So now the only stuff which we have to fix is next one is the search filter. So the applying filter, the filter buttons are working perfectly. Now we have to do the same stuff for the search filter, and that's what we are going to do next.